All right, welcome to the team playbook here. We got Zachary, who's the founder and CEO of Grapevine Software. So you have a unique background. I know you mentioned you started an operating room, you work in a factory, and then you moved to B2B SaaS. And then you just also mentioned you even do some rapping here on the side too, which is awesome. But right now you're trying to build something really innovative here with the Grapevine Workplace. I know you mentioned your passion is making the workplace better through these systems. Just share a little bit about your journey, sort of your non-corporate background, and the finding of Grapevine, and what ultimately drove you to focus on like operational problems for remote teams.
Yeah, so the background is kind of a culmination of a series of events, I guess. So I played baseball in college, and it was really the only way that I got into college. And so I mentioned that because I went to school for 4.5 years and I quit baseball and then I dropped out. And then that's kind of where some of these odd jobs sprinkle in. Where I used to work in a factory, like you said, I was doing roofing houses in a mobile home factory. We did about 8 to 10 houses a day with a crew of 7 people.
I hope that was
And
inside.
yeah, it was inside, but if it was a hot day, it was hot. If it was cold, it was cold. So, but you warmed up by doing the work. Um, so that's what got me into the manufacturing side of it and working in a factory. And then I went back to school for about 2 semesters. I dropped out again, and that's what got me into being an operating room assistant, which is basically the person who is cleaning up the blood after surgeries. In some cases, you're helping the doctor with the surgery, but only in like anterior hips. But that's not the point of this podcast.
Yeah.
But basically, you're taking specimens to the lab, you're doing all this kind of stuff. And then at the same time, I got another job drug testing people. It was like recovering addicts, and they needed to be on Medicare or Medicaid, and they needed to be clean to keep getting that. So we drug tested them, sent it off to the lab. So I had those two jobs. In many cases, I was working like 16 hours a day, and then I said, well, let's just add something to it, and I started going to night classes again. So I went back to school, and from there, that's where this last go round of college, I actually graduated. But even more important than that was finding out about organizational psychology and some of the people that really uphold that industry or that segment, which is people like Adam Grant. Another person is Sean Aker. I ran across Laszlo Bach, which was, I think he was like the senior VP of people operations and analytics at Google for the longest time. So that's what I mean by a series of events. Like, it wasn't a linear path by any means, but during that journey, I kind of reestablished my resilience, right? But the other part that got me into just wanting to make work better was experiencing so many different environments in the workplace. I mean, you're talking about manufacturing versus an
Yeah.
actual operating room versus the hospital in general. And then I go into IT staffing. So this is like my first step into IT, not thinking that anything about tech. It was more about I want to get into HR because I think that's how I can improve work. It was one of those catch-22 things where you want to get into HR, but you have to have 2 years of experience in an entry-level position. It didn't add up, so that's where I got into the IT staffing, thinking that it's correlated to HR. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
a different beast. But from there, I got into leadership, started learning a little bit more about tech. I was always operational and strategic in the way that I approach things. So I kind of led into like process and quit that job because of a bully boss. That's a whole different story. But I ended up going to management consulting, and I was working with a lot of the C-suite level people at this pretty big company called TIA or TIAA Craft here around here in Concord and Charlotte. And I was taking the processes from the C-suite level executives, putting them into process maps, and then connecting them on the back end of SharePoint. So you were able to do all these things. So, I mean, then you fast forward, I worked at a startup company. That's where I first experienced startups. And then towards that, it was 2020 around, well, a little bit before 2020, but remote work started coming into play. I got laid off 2 days before Christmas. And then I go into the role that really catapulted me into being on the leadership team and being able to work in B2B SaaS. And from there, it's kind of been off to the races of tech, B2B, SaaS, and this journey that I'm on now.
Yeah. So a man of many hats. I mean, obviously that's given you a lot of different experiences.
Yeah.
That I think, I mean, it seems like it's just how do you apply what works here? Does it work there? Like what, like there's pros and, I mean, just like anything, there's pros and cons to
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And so you just have that experience now to, I feel like to help optimize your software, what you're building. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and just to jump in for a second, like it really does give me that full view, right?
yeah.
Because you're thinking about how an industry might interpret your software, for example, right? And not just interpret it, but what are the different there's so many minutiaes inside of different industries, different positions, different teams, and so I mean, obviously, I haven't tried all of them, but it gives you this framework or this mindset of thinking around the corners because whenever you're working in B2B SaaS, nobody's thinking about how the operating room operates,
Mm,
right? But like you said, like, well, they did this and this actually applies here. Can we fit
mhm,
that little piece into here that nobody else has thought about because they've only been in B2B SaaS? So
yeah.
yeah, it gives you this different perspective and it helps you
Mhm.
think around the or see around the corners.
And I think that's a good for my follow-up question here because you mentioned sort of with what you're building right now, that you're taking this bottom-up approach rather than the top-down. And so for like a team leader or broker that, you know, because we're focused on real estate more so here, what does that mean in practical terms, right? Like with that bottom-up approach, like how does that make it easier?
Yeah, yeah, and just to add a little color here is for the last like 18 months to 2 years, I had a team, and it was the team and I working on building this. We called it like a virtual HQ or virtual office platform. What we realized, and we kind of knew from the beginning, but it's a lot harder. We were taking this top down approach because you had to, because the way that we designed the tool was it was like the entire company or nothing, right? Which probably isn't the best strategy. And so whenever we were pivoting, and I say we, now it's just me, because we did a full 180 pivot, and I built the entire Grapevine from ground up, from scratch. And so whenever I was building that, I was thinking about the issues that we were having with traction in the past. And then you think about companies like Slack or Notion or like kind of maybe even Zoom, like fill in the blank. What they do is a bottom up approach, meaning that instead of what we were doing, like saying, okay, here's this software, you have to implement it to your entire company, we'll help you through it, but it does have to go to everybody. Instead, now an individual, one single person can use Grapevine Workplace and find value from it. And so when we were rebuilding from the ground up, we wanted to make sure that we had that element. And so now you can be like a team of three and have this super powerful platform that allows you to do all these different things in one system versus having to have that capability but to roll it out to the entire company. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it. You get in through one person, you get in through like a smaller team. That team tells the other team about Grapevine Workplace because it's so powerful, it's so helpful in how they're doing XYZ. And so that's what we mean by bottom up, is being able to come in at that low
And I
level.
should say, like, maybe also provide just a little bit of a broad overview of the
Yeah.
software too. I guess we should probably cover
Yeah.
that as well.
I was thinking about that as I was saying it. But yeah, and I mean it is a very robust a software, because what we're really trying to do is build this digital workplace operating system. And I know that's a fancy set of words together, probably for marketing lingo, but what we really mean is that the landscape of the tools out there and the landscape of how people work today has significantly changed, and tools today have adapted and tried to be a little bit more friendly to like remote and hybrid, or they've tried to be a little bit more friendly in ingesting these other tools into their own tool, which we want to get there too. But why does it have to be like that, right? Like the way that you can develop today, and as fast as you can develop, let's get all these things in here and make it available. So what we've done with that is we've taken like your productivity suite of tools and we put them into the system, but we've also paired them with your performance management aspects of it. So how do you manage your team? How do you manage your direct reports? How do you manage projects? How do you manage all these different things, right? And so in the summary of it, like what we're offering people is a platform that allows you to unify the task, the calendar, the meetings, the documents, like the strategy, so like goals, OKRs, and then even the employee experience aspect of it. And we have like chat and all this kind of stuff too. So I know that's a lot. We're clearly still in pivot
Mhm.
mode, but that's
Well,
that's how we
so
summarize
I
it.
know one major pain point that you mentioned is like sort of tool fragmentation, over communication, like a lot of redundancy, right? I would think in real estate world, right? Because I mean, focus it here with our audience. Agents probably use probably like 10 different apps right now. So how would you say like Grapevine Workplace would bring together sort of that productivity, performance management, and insights to sort of cut through all that additional noise, and so they can stay more focused?
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of depends on the specific aspects of the person's position or company. But if you're, let me ask you a question real quick though. Like, what type of tools do you guys typically use in this industry?
So I mean, you're going to do a lot of virtual meetings. There's a lot of just chat, right? You got to connect with your other agents, broker partners, but then you also got to think communication with your lenders. I would think, especially real estate agents, they're most focused on communication with their clients. So that's SMS, sometimes Zooms, sometimes meeting in person, so setting up those meetings. But then there's the actual tracking and listing and marketing, for like their listings. So the
Yeah,
communication with them, making sure everything's moving along as it needs to, through these loans are going through the process, or closings, or however they're working. So you're also communicating with title. There's just honestly, the biggest thing is communication in that world, is because there's so many different places and so many different things, but it's for one transaction,
yeah.
that you're trying to follow. So, and there's a lot of different people involved.
Yeah, so that's actually a good example, right? Because what will happen is in the real estate industry or in other industries that communication and collaboration is super important. You are typically having those conversations across, like you said, multiple tools. So email, phone call, text message, your internal chat functionality, um, probably sending documents back and forth,
Hmm.
updating, like you mentioned, like the contact management approach. Like, you have this person, you're at this stage with them. Like, we're not a CRM tool or a customer relationship management tool, but if you wanted to, you could technically use this like that, with the projects approach. And so what we're doing and giving users the ability to do is kind of scrap all those other things that are, I like to say, they kind of get in the way of work, because there's this friction point that just is happening whenever you're where you have to go over here to Google Docs or Notion or like whatever tool that you're using for file management, Dropbox, whatever. You have to go over here and then you have to go to Slack or you have to go to email and you have to paste it there and all that kind of stuff. In our system, that all lives under one roof, under one UI. And so it's the way that I've been describing it is we're building the most interconnected system out there. And what I mean by that is like your calendar is connected directly to your task. Your tasks are connected directly to the meetings that you just had, internal and external. Your other elements are connected to your employees' development growth plan. And then that's ultimately connected to goals or your documents and all that stuff. And so it just makes the workflow that we're providing you through the system that we've built within our software, it just makes it so much easier to not have to think about like, oh, this was over here, this was over there. It's in Grapevine Workplace, and that's all that I have to do. I have to go to Grapevine Workplace, and it's going to kind of tell me the rest because it's already organizing your task for you because it's based off a high priority due date, the certain reminders. Maybe somebody mentioned you in a task that you need to update, or maybe they left a comment in your note section. And then what we're working on now is we have a chat functionality too, and it's called Figgy Chat. And so Figgy Chat allows you to do group chat. It allows you to do direct message. But the biggest difference for our chat versus all the other ones is that, again, we're super interconnected. So if I upload a file, it's going to save in a more methodical and strategic way than something like a Slack. Like if you look at reviews on Slack or MS Teams or you name the other chat function, like search is terrible. And this is another, and I'll stop talking after this, but this is another like pet peeve of mine is like whenever I'm sharing something on a Slack, a WhatsApp, a G chat, whatever chat, right? I have to download it and then I have to put it into my desktop or I have to put it into my phone. Yeah. With this, whenever you upload it, you can, it stores into the chat, but you can automatically, or not automatically, you're doing it manually, but you can add it to your files and you can preview it before you even have to click off to another tab. And so like, it's just these little nuances that we're trying to strip away from how a user experiences the productivity suite, the project management system, the performance management system, and even communication now. So that's, and I know that's like a long rant, but it's really about the consolidation and giving the people less to work with so they can do more of what matters.
Yeah, exactly. They spend their time on what actually they need to be spending their time on. What I say is actually working on your business, not working, in your business.
There's a stat out there from Asana, and I think they say that like 60% of most professional workers spend time on work about work, which is those little friction points that I was talking about.
And people don't even realize what they are necessarily. You just kind of just do them. You're so used to it and don't realize that, man, this is actually a time killer. As you extrapolate that over a long period of time too.
Well, yeah, like I think this was from Asana too, but like there's a stat out there where it says anywhere from like 1.8 to 2.5 hours every day is spent on just trying to search and find information that already lives in your system or in your company's knowledge base. And so like, and that's per employee. So if you calculate that 5 days a week, let's just say happy middle 2 hours, that's 10 hours. That means that your employees are wasting more than 1 day per week. Imagine getting that back and the productivity that could rise from that. That's what we're offering, honestly.
Yeah. It just gives them more time to go through their TikToks and Instagrams.
Yeah. Well,
no, you got to have your good workers, right? No, that's always the toughest thing in the world is having good help. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so So a couple of things I want to make sure I highlight that you also mentioned before. So the sort of the asynchronous communication. So you noted that spread across time zones or different areas, different time people are working and all. But it's again, it's all in one spot for everyone to have access to this in sort of real time, and you're able to easily have that communication even if you're working at different times or different areas or places, right?
Yeah. And that's what I mean about like a lot of these tools during the pandemic and the shift to more of a remote or flexible working environment, they adapted. And whenever you adapt as a product to solve a need, you're never really going to fulfill that for the people who actually live it every single day, right? And so that's where we consciously build based off of how teams work now and the way that they'll work in the future, which is it used to be that you were all in the same office. It used to be that even if you weren't in the same office, you were probably in a 50-mile radius. And so like you might have this building over here for our example, Charlotte, North Carolina, but then you might have another one in Salisbury, North Carolina. This is like 50 miles apart, right? So but that's not like true. I can pick up the phone and boom, 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 I can talk
Mm-hmm.
to you. When the thing started to shift, it's okay, the workforce is now global. And even if it means that I'm on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, there's still that 3 hour difference. So like we're kind of okay with that because there's a bigger gap where you work together. But whenever you're talking about people who are going to be working in the US, people working in the Philippines, people working in Australia, the UK, India, Pakistan, like all these different places obviously have different time zones. And so the challenge for remote and distributed teams is that you're not always going to be online at the same time. But that doesn't mean that you can neglect alignment and clarity. And so that's what we're providing here is because I think like one of the big things that is happening or that will happen if it isn't already is that your self-serve mechanism of how you operate on the digital side of your work is going to be one of the most important things out there. And what I mean by that is if you are in a different time zone, you need to be able to have the answers at your fingertips. And if you don't, then you're going to get left behind, right? Because let's say that like I'm working the team that we used to have, they were based out of Pakistan. And so they were 9 or 10 hours ahead of me. So we really only had like a small gap whenever we were working in that same online time. And so the way that we had to communicate was through chat. So we would chat and then they would answer when they woke up or I would answer when I woke up. We would have like meetings that would take place, but then everything else was done through the system that we built. So if I wanted to create a company-wide announcement or a department announcement or just a team announcement, I could put that on there. I can make sure that the people see it and then they can take action on it too. So one of the things that we're doing to significantly improve that workflow is whenever we build this, we call it the network. So you have like news feeds like you have on LinkedIn or Facebook. And one of the things that we want to do is whenever you share something or you post an announcement or whatever the case is, you can have people acknowledge, like they're required that they have to acknowledge that they saw this.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gives you this,
A little accountability, basically.
yeah, the accountability. And then as the leader sharing this, it gives you the confidence that everybody in the organization saw it, or maybe only 80% saw it. So you want to repost it and bring it back to the attention of those people, right? And so that's one thing. And then the other things is documentation. Just making sure that like anything that is important, like you mentioned, the flow of a real estate professional, they're going to be working with all these different people. So you probably have different types of SOPs for specific things. So do we have that documented? Is it somewhere that is easily searchable? Can they ask questions and receive answers automatically? This is where AI comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if like one, you have to have the self-serve action, you have to have the knowledge base that's updated and accurate and verified, you have to have the ability to share and be able to have the confidence that people are seeing things. And then the AI level of it is, can I ask a question? Like, for example, in our knowledge base that we just built is not out in the system yet publicly, but like I could either leave a comment, which is not AI involved, or in this knowledge base article, like let's say it's like an SOP, I can say, what do I need to do on step 3? And instead of having to wait for somebody to respond to me, AI reads the article for you and it says, do blah, 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 blah. Then it goes to your FAQs list. The person who's the owner or a collaborator of the article, like you as the user is getting that information directly from the article, but me as the admin or the owner or the collaborator, I go in and I say, okay, this is correct, so I can verify it, or I can edit it and then verify it. So now you get the answer immediately, but then you get a person to verify it, so you feel even more confident with it, because that's one of the issues that people have with AI is, can they trust it? So this is kind of throwing that human mechanism into it too. So that's the async operations and communications that we're kind of thinking about.
Yeah, so and that's a good transition. Again, you're on top of this.
Right.
So AI and how it's impacting your overall business. So obviously you provided that example, and I think that's good. And one thing I don't think a lot of people realize, like so many people think AI is this, it's such a vague. It's like it can do everything, and how it works,
Yeah.
and it's just magic basically. But it turns out it's only as good as what you give it,
Yes.
especially if you're implementing it in this way too.
Exactly.
So I would think, especially with businesses that you're working with, having they got to be in line with their SOPs and just how they go about doing their business and actually have this stuff ready. I don't know if like is that something you would also help them build or at least recommend like, hey, we need to do this to have this effect. But also, what other sort of tools with AI? This is sort of separate question. So,
Yeah.
question two is like, what other AI tools would you say you have implemented along in your software?
Yeah. So the first one, I would say, I just love business and I like helping businesses. So like our obviously our main goal is to get you to use the system, not because like we want you to just use it, but because we know that it's actually really valuable and it's going to help you and your team perform better, be more productive, have more engagement, and all the good stuff, right? Like all the things that you want to hear. But the other part that we think about is we have lots of templates inside of the system. So if you're in the knowledge base, you have like specific things. So there's an SOP template, there's a employee policy template, there's so many different templates out there. Same thing with like project management. You could have a template for the project management. We have an AI project generator, so you can put it in just normal language text, hit generate. It's going to go ahead and process it for you and put it into this nice project that then you can assign to people, or you can use it yourself. In the notes section, we have templates and things like that. But I'll say, like, if somebody came to us and they started using our system and they had questions about how to improve their workplace strategy, how to make sure that their knowledge base is appropriate and accurate, and make sure that the things that they put into the system that they use, hopefully it's ours, is accurate. It's gonna produce the right types of answers. We're gonna be more than willing to step up and help them. Partly because that's just me. I want to help as many businesses as possible, and then two, I think it's part of my bigger vision to make work better, and I can't just like gatekeep that from people who are willing
Yeah,
to work with us.
yeah,
And what was
yeah.
the other one was the
Well,
AI
it's like,
tool.
yeah, what other tools you'd have? So, and you
Yeah.
mentioned another there, what you're doing too. So you sort of answered it too.
Yeah, I mean
Is there anything else?
I would say like in our system, I'll kind of like highlight the areas where we have AI, and then I'll talk about some of the tools that we use. It's not anything crazy, but like in our system, so we have semantic and elastic search, And so what that means is you can search, you can find the things like a normal traditional search, but then you can select the specific things that you want to that you're searching for. You can click analyze. So what I like to give an example is we have tons of notes. Notes are like our documents. And so like we have tons of notes in the system about the digital workplace framework that we created. And so I'll go tell me or show me everywhere that the digital workplace framework shows up. It'll spit it out. It'll rank it based off of the percentage that this is the most related to your specific search from semantic search. And basically like semantic is like, this is what this person is trying to ask, right? And so I can click multiple notes, tasks, projects, whatever's in the system, and then I can click the AI portion of it, which is analyze these. So let's say that you have like 10 SOPs and it's for, I know we're just focusing on SOPs, but let's just say 10 SOPs and they're all related to this process. You can click analyze. It's going to give you this like robust summary of, okay, this is what you need to do. Boom, 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 boom. But then if you click into the other places, you can see like where it was pulled from and you can take action from it. So you can turn it into a note. And so that's like your quick hits note for you, and you can share it with people. You can collaborate on it. You could turn it into a project or turn it into a task, and you can create a meeting where it generates the agenda for you. So I mean, like that's our goal whenever we think about AI. One is it helping kind of take away or eliminate the thought process of the things that are not as important in the sense of like, okay, I need to do this, this, is this. Yeah. Or like, what is the summary? Let's go ahead and do that for you. And then from the output of the AI, how can we turn that into insights? Because that's the next phase on how we think about AI is the insights. Because data, like you said, garbage in is garbage out. So like, let's take the data that we get and make it into insights so we can turn that instead of just data, now it's something that we can act on. And that's the third part, which is how can we take the insights and make them applicable where I can take action. So that's like the search part. Then we have my daily plan, and I'll go through these quicker, I promise. The daily plan is basically like summarizing your specific day and using AI to pull from your tasks, your notes, your meetings, your development plans, your goals, your like all these things into one like simple checklist almost. Then we have, like we mentioned, the AI project generator. In the meetings, you can, if you're doing like a one-on-one or you have a meeting that you didn't prepare for and you need to do it like last minute, you can click generate talking points. It would generate talking points for you based off of the information in the system from those people. So if it's internal, it's going to pull from your recurring one-on-ones and it's going to say, you guys talked about this last time. You want to follow up on this. If it's from an external one, you might have to add a couple of resources, but it's going to generate that for you. You add it. You can turn your talking points into task. You can also take notes, and then that goes into your task. And then like there's a couple of other things, but the biggest one that I really like is our insights page. And it basically takes literally everything that is going on in the system from a productivity standpoint. So the projects, the things, the initiatives that you're working on, but also the people side of it. So like there's a pulse survey that goes out once a week. And it's basically like, how are you feeling this week? What did you do? What were your challenges? And so it's like this sentiment calculator in a sense. And so like once it goes like up, it's great. And like you want to celebrate the team. Whenever it goes down, there's something going on and you want to be able to see that. And so like in our insights,
like an insight that it's harder to get that you typically won't, that's not something that I think a lot of business leaders are constantly trying to get, but it's critically important to their business.
Yeah. And if we think about remote work or like to put it in more of the context of your audience, right? Like you guys might not necessarily be remote, but I have to remind people remote doesn't mean working from home. It just means not working from the office, right? And so you guys are always over here on your phone. And so just imagine like being able to like, just like we send it out every Friday and it's automatic. Like it's in the system. You don't have to worry about it. But then I just put this in here. And then as a manager or a leader, I can go to either the Pulse page or the Insights page and see like, and I can compare it from week to week or month to month, quarter to quarter, year over year. Like we have that already embedded in there. And I can say like, oh, Carl, he's kind of getting frustrated the last
Mm,
2 weeks. I should probably talk to him. So let's actually put that in our one-on-one talking points, right? So
yeah,
this is where like you kind of start to see the flywheel of the system. It
yeah,
seems like so much, but the way that I vision it and think about it, and I have to help other people see it this way, is it is all super connected. So it might seem like different things, but that's kind of the whole thesis of Grapevine Workplace, which is like we have all these elements and tools that we use, but typically these tools kind of live outside the flow of work. And what I mean by that is like if you're chatting, we kind of already mentioned it, but I'm chatting here and we're going back and forth, and then I have to go over here to get this and bring it back. Or if I'm trying to like keep my team engaged and trying to have fun, I either have like a boring Slack channel, which everybody acts like they're fun, they're not. Sorry. And then, or you have something like Viva Engage or something else where it's like more this social platform or this performance management system that lives way out in the middle of nowhere and nobody visits it until your manager tells you to because HR told you to,
yeah.
right? And so like we need to take those flows of work and put them into one system. And so
Yeah.
they, but yeah, I know that was about AI, and then I kind of went on a tangent.
No, and I think that's great. One thing that I'm kind of noticing too, because I was a leader for remote teams, and I honestly I became a director right when COVID hit.
Oh
So
man,
I had like all these new employees, and
yeah,
I'm just trying to figure this out. But it was a challenge with the remote team because it was kind of new at that point. I mean, it was happening, but it wasn't the level it is now,
yeah,
and it's so there was a lot to learn, and I was trying to get intuitive with the tools that we had and Zoom and all this stuff, and I figured some out, and I was pretty good at it. So much so that they even kept me remote
yeah,
when we moved back to the office and to lead these remote teams. Um, but what I'm picking up is from the leader's perspective, this is a much more effective way to manage your team and also keep them accountable to doing the tasks that you're expecting them to do, because I mean when you're remote, like it's very easy to be like, cool, I got my work done, so let me run over here, go do something else, which is fine, but of course you want your people to stay productive when they're supposed to be, and
yeah,
it's an easy way to hold them a little accountable because the insights that you have and the projects that you have in front of them, and it's this and again the communication involved.
yeah,
That's what I'm picking up a
yeah.
lot from what you have here.
Well, yeah, and like kind of going back to your story about managing remotely, one of the ways that people tried to solve this, I mean, they called it disconnection or whatever you want to call it, but like the way that they tried to solve it was with so many meetings. It was
Yeah,
like, okay, we can't
yeah,
see each other anymore. Let's throw it on the calendar.
yeah.
Let's add another. There were
I don't think
literally
anyone like that.
no, and that's the thing. It's because we didn't know, and so we were trying to develop this as we were learning this new phase, right? And it's not even a phase now. It's like built into our workplace system. But that's how it worked. I mean, I had days where I literally had 16 meetings in one day. I barely had time to run to the restroom and come back. That's why I always laugh at like whenever some people say like, "Oh, you get to work from remote, like you can do whatever you want," and it's like, I mean, you can do whatever you want too,
Yeah,
like, but is your work going to get done? So, but yeah.
yeah.
Side note beside,
No, you're right. You have all these, you have like this over communication thing that started happening, and it's like, no, let me do my damn work. All right,
yeah,
like this is
yeah.
ridiculous.
And so like, and I know I keep going back to this concept of like being methodical, being like specific, being intentional about how you're building the system for who you're trying to serve. Like that's the thing. Like the asynchronous operations side of it saves your team, because if you are operating like what we just said, like meetings, because that's the only way that we feel like we can connect, keep everybody aligned and all that, then that's not sustainable, right? And that's why I think that a lot of people who are against remote work or flexible work and want to go to these rigid RTOs or return to office is because they didn't take the time to adapt to this new way of working. And
Yeah.
I do think that part of it is that these software companies didn't take the time to fully invest into like, okay, this is the new way of working.
Yeah, how it should actually be done, right?
Yeah,
Versus what we think we should be doing.
exactly.
They tried to bring the at home or the
Yeah,
at work home, but it's
exactly.
not the same.
Exactly. And this actually touches on, I know one of the things we talked about the pre-call, which is like how I visualize our system as like rooms and floors and chats and stuff like that. And so like, yes, spot on. Like people and leaders at companies were trying to recreate the traditional office in a digital format. And the problem with that goes back to what we were talking about before, which is we don't operate out of the same office. We don't operate out of the same time zone. And we don't even work at the same times a lot anymore, right? And so if you're just trying to recreate the office, which there are tools out there that allow you to do that in a virtual format, but my issue is that that's just relying on synchronization again, like being in the system at the same time, meaning that you're glued to your desk or you're glued to a camera all day, and that's just not the point, right? Like I talked about the digital workplace framework earlier. It's 5 movements. Like it's something that we created. It basically breaks down the new 5 movements of work and like what you need for your digital workplace to be successful and sustainable. And so just like real quick, they go sync. So you do have the time for like real time collaboration. You might have like an all hands or a company all hands where everybody's on the call, or maybe like these skip level meetings where you're talking to different people in the organization. And then you're going to have meetings, like they're not going to go away. They're still important. So there's that stuff, or emergency or crisis communication. Those go out in real time. Then you have align, which is where the async aspect of it comes into play. And so you want tools like Grapevine Workplace because you can comment in notes. Those people are going to get updated. You can comment in tasks. They're going to get updated. There's going to be reminders there. We have Figgy Chat that you can have a conversation. It's more organized. It's more interconnected to the system that you're already using. So it's going to be better for whenever you go to the next section, which is focus and share. But like, with align and sync, you want to find that happy balance, because if you're too much in sync, then people are going to get burned out, right? We just talked about it. If you're too much in aligned, people probably are going to tune out or disengaged a little bit. So you want to balance those. Focus is, there's 2 types of focus, which is the individual focus, and that's where like I just picture somebody who's an engineer coding at 2 a.m. at night with their hoodie on and pitch black dark. Like that's their focus time. They're not having interruptions or disruptions. They're getting the work done instead of being on all these meetings and then after hours having to work, right? And then there's the team focus. And so this is super important for remote, distributed, and flexible teams, because like this is where you're blocking not just 30 minutes or an hour. I mean, it could be 2 hours out of the day, no distractions, because let's just use like marketing, for example. Like marketing has this big push for a brand uplift. They're updating the website. They're changing product marketing and the messaging and the positioning and all this stuff. So like if you're working remotely, like these 30-minute little chats and then this person over here, this person over here, like you got to get together and allow yourself no distractions and specific time, just like you would go into a conference room. That's what you want to do here. The 4th is share. And share is kind of what it sounds like, but that's where this knowledge base comes into play. Like you want to make sure that if you're taking a meeting, you're recording it, you're being able to share it with that person, you're able to turn that information into actions that can be followed up and align and focus. But basically, the whole point of share is that self-serve aspect and being able to find answers. And then the last part is the connect, which is like, how do we, I call this like the heartbeat of it all, because like connect is the little line that goes through, or the heartbeat that goes through all these different things that are happening. So rewards and recognition, like the culture aspect of it. The like we're building something with AI now where it's like in chat, you're going to have a chat dashboard, and in the chat dashboard, it's like based off of your conversations and your task, your goals, your notes, your blah, 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 you should probably connect with this person because they also have a goal that is very similar. So like we're going to have that aspect in there too. And that's just like, that's more of like automated AI connect nudges. And then you have to kind of take it from there if you do it. But that's what we're talking about there. And this is not linear. It's like a Broadway musical or like a ballroom dance, right? Like they're all flowing like in between, intertangled and all that kind of stuff together. But that is, in our opinion, how the modern teams work today. And you have to have a system that tackles and makes those things available to your team. And if you're doing that now and not in Workplace, you're probably doing 10 or 20 different applications for that and paying for all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all, yeah. I mean, this is all, again, consolidated. Yeah, you're right. You're paying for every single one of those.
Yeah.
So we'll start wrapping up. I guess I'll prompt you here with this last question. If you had, this is regardless of Grapevine.
Yeah.
Okay? Just because you know this, because obviously this is the problem you're solving, right? If you can give one piece of advice to a real estate team leader or business leader or someone managing their remote team, right, with all these different tools or not, what's the first step do you think that they should be taking to provide more structure, to be more efficient, more productive, that what they should be doing?
Yeah. I know that this is not about Grapevine, but
Yeah.
we actually do have something, and we didn't plan this, but we have something called the Digital Workplace Framework Assessment. And so you basically answer a set of questions, and once you get done with it, you submit it, and literally like a few seconds later, it spits out this full report of where you fall into the 5 movements of work. And so honestly, that's where people should start, in our opinion. Yeah. If you can't do that, I mean, it's completely free.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's a good one. It's like you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So that's great to have that assessment. So you're quickly identifying, okay, this is the problem we're solving.
Yep. And then like the other part is, I mean, basically, yeah, start with an audit of your organization, and don't do it by yourself, right? You can do the assessment, but what I would do is like take the assessment, share it to a lot of people in your team, and then get the real number, you know? But even if you don't use the assessment, do a quick audit. Like how many, we have a stat in Insights that I like a lot. It breaks down the meetings. And so like if you schedule meetings in Grapevine, it will tell you like the hottest topics that people are talking about based off of the titles. It'll talk about like recurring versus one-off meetings, and it will show you external versus internal meetings. It'll show you the duration of the meetings and like how long they are. And so like I mentioned that because meetings are like a specific thing that you can look into, especially for like a remote team who's having probably more meetings than other companies. And so you can look there and say like, okay, are we having too many meetings? If you are, then your sync level is probably super high, and that's not sustainable. You're going to create burnout over time. So basically do that audit, bring in the team members and actually talk to them. This is funny. Like it's funny, but sad because like I never understood why a leader will maybe have like complaints about the team or whatever, or like about the team complaining that they don't have this or this or this. The team is the closest to the customer. They're the closest to the operations, and they're the closest to the people doing the work. And so like your goal as a leader is to be strategic, set the direction, and make sure that we're going in the right way to achieve our North Star, right? That's how I think about it.
Hmm.
And so when you're doing that audit, ask your people, like, what would you change? What's working? What's not
Hmm.
working? What's broken? What did we change that you really loved and you want to bring it back? What did we not think about and we need to do? So to me, that's the first step is just understand your team better by speaking to them, understand your process better by talking to the people who actually do it. The other side of it is talk to your customers because they're going to tell you like they're
Hmm.
paying you for something, and if they don't like what you're doing or what you're selling them, they're going to be the ones that are going to tell you like don't ask your friends because they'll tell you what you want to
Yeah.
hear.
What? Yeah. Yeah.
Ask your customers, and I always tell people this is the last thing I'll say. I always tell people like when you go through our product or anything that we do, don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what you think I don't want to hear
Yeah.
because that's going to make us better.
It's
So
actually more productive. Yeah.
that's my advice. Yeah.
Well, Zachary, well, thanks for joining us here. It's been fascinating, learning a lot. Where can our listeners here find out more about Grapevine Workplace or and follow you here?
Yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn, Zachary A. Wright, MBA, and then we have Grapevine, your virtual office platform. We're going to be changing some of these, so that's why I say follow me on LinkedIn
Yeah.
is the best place. There is a link. It's called grapevineworkplace.app backslash index INDEX. That's our landing page until we get the actual website revamped, but you can check that out or yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
All right. All right. Perfect. Well, thanks again. All right for joining us. We'll get this wrapped up and on to the next episode here eventually. All right.
Thank you.
All
It was
right.
fun.
Thanks.